Welcome to another episode of A Cuppa with a Conversationalist. My name is Con. I am the Conversationalist. And yes, I have my latte in tow. As always, my guest also had his brew. Fantastic. My guest this morning, all the way from Tulum, Mexico, is Eli Scheier. Welcome, Eli. Eli, thank you very much for your time this morning. It's been a bit of a challenge getting together. You're a very, very busy man. Eli is the founder of I Am Love Meditation and Workshop Retreats in Tulum, Mexico. Eli has a master's degree in clinical psychology of the spiritual mind body from Columbia University and has spent many years studying yoga, meditation, and stillness in India. He's an established teacher of yoga and meditation and has a deep connection with Mother Earth. Eli, thank you again for your time this morning. Eli, I know there's a backstory, how you got into or your transition, and you were originally a suit on Wall Street, which I found absolutely fascinating. Can you just give us a little bit of background on that? And indeed, what I'm fascinated about is how you got from Wall Street to where you are now. And I know there's a little bit in between, which I only found out about when we spoke before I started recording.
Thank you very much, Con. Yeah, it's funny because it's easy to say, well, there was a fork in the road and I took the wrong path. Yeah, I was on Wall Street and I was at the time an institutional sales trader. Which meant entertaining clients a lot. And we were partying and doing, and I had gone to a festival in upstate New York and I was arrested and spending 2 nights in a jail cell in a small town in upstate New York gave me time to think a lot about my life. That was the defining moment that changed my life forever and took me on the next journey, which was the dark night of the soul, which took me to being a shepherd in the desert in the Mideast, tending to 300 sheep, to growing organic vegetables in upstate New York, and studying in India and Bali and Israel, and then making my way finally to Tulum, Mexico.
How does one, there's a defining moment in there somewhere where Eli goes, this can't continue. This is not the road that I want to go down. Was it being arrested? Was it, what was it?
That's a beautiful question. You know, we always have our dreams of what we're looking for. And I've always dreamt, of having a family and children. And I got so caught up in the materialism and the fun of Wall Street, and the partying and that, I woke up one day and that was the day and realized, wait a minute, what happened to my real goals and aspirations? Why am I here, at, 39, 40, it was 45, I think. It was, 45 years old. Yeah. And with nothing to show for myself. And so it was a big wake-up call. It was never been arrested and never spending time in a jail cell, really shook me up.
Yeah, I can imagine. I do have to ask you one question. It would be remiss of me, and I'm sure everybody else that's going to be listening to this would be thinking exactly the same thing. And we won't dwell on it because your transition and the work that you do now is far more important and where I want to spend our time. Most people are familiar with the movie The Wolf of Wall Street. How close is what you experienced or what you saw to those absolute excesses and things that went on? Is that a real depiction or is that an exaggeration?
That was a real depiction.
Wow.
We were heavy into the Quaaludes as well, and we did trade them and on Wall Street, and we did have our own experiences of and the partying. Yes, that's
Wow.
pretty much a very, very good.
Goodness gracious me.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Not everybody, trust
No.
me, not everybody. It was, but that was the time of the 90s, and it got crazy. Yeah.
Crazy is an understatement. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
So we've had this transition, and you've ended up tending 300 sheep. How do we get there? Like, you don't wake up in the morning and go, right, I want to go to Israel. Who do I ring to tend 300 sheep? How did that all come about?
So I was invited to Israel for my dear friend Sam's son's bar mitzvah, and while I was there, I felt this calling. I felt that this is where I need to be for the time being, because I didn't have a job. There was nothing going on for me in New York at the moment, at that time, in the transition. So I called some volunteer organizations, and it's interesting. The one that really resonated with me was to go down south in the desert to a therapeutic riding academy, where they use horses for therapy. It's very big throughout the world. Well, it's gaining more now, but and that that really resonated with me. So I was going to make my way down and spend several months there. I got a phone call the day before I was leaving. He said, "Listen, there's a poor farmer who has sheep. Maybe you can go and just help him for a day or two, a few days." On your way down. And I said, sure, no problem. So I went south, and I got off of the small town, and the car took me another 20 minutes out into these roads, and we came to a hill, and climbing up the hill, and we look over, and there's this amazing, I would say the equivalent of about 2,000 acres farm. Filled with a few horses, sheep, hundreds of olive trees and other trees and chickens, and it was pretty cut off from everything else. And I don't know what it was, but that was the calling. It was near Beersheba, which of course in the Bible, that's where our forefathers tended sheep as well. And for some reason or other, there was a calling for me to be there. And I ended up staying there several months. And it was the most beautiful, amazing learning experience for me.
Goodness gracious me.
Yeah.
Tell me what goes through your mind when you're tending 300, 200 sheep. What is the conversation that Ellie is having? I'm fascinated.
So when you're out there in the desert, you're looking for food. And so we're walking several kilometers. And pretty much the sheep are leading you in the beginning till they find a nice little pasture, a little hill with some food, and they're out there grazing. So the only thing the only thing on your mind when you're out there is finding food for the sheep. You are fully present, and you're not thinking about the rest of the world. You're not really thinking about the past, and you're not really worried about the future. Is one of the things that I teach people and that we speak about. And it was an amazing opportunity to sit in stillness with Mother Nature and just listen to nature and hear the messages from nature. And one of the things I teach when during yoga practice is connecting with nature to tell the universe what it is that's bothering you, what is troubling you, and allow the universe, listen to the message in the universe.
Mm. You spent a fair bit of time in India studying. How long were you in India for?
I was also in India for about 3 months, 4 months.
Okay. And I'm curious again, just help me with the transition from Israel. How did you then end up either in India or end up in Mexico? What was the process there?
So I was practicing yoga for about 25, 30 years, but I have not taught. And when I moved to Tulum, Mexico, I slowly became the director of wellness at this boutique hotel chain, a HOW collection. And so I started working on the yoga, and I would practice every morning in the classes. And what's interesting is sometimes the teacher would show up and give the class. Sometimes the teacher would not show up at all. And sometimes the teacher would show up, but wouldn't even teach. So I went to the, this is before I was even the director of wellness. I went to the owner of the company. I said, you know, it's really sad. The guests sometimes come here and there's no class, and where you're advertising there's a class. And he said to me very simply, can you do a better job running it and organizing it? And I said, absolutely. He said, okay, you're now director of wellness. But this is what's great. So I started cleaning out, you know, the teachers who just didn't take it seriously and didn't have the, you know, respect that they need to give to what they're doing and to the students and to the guests. So one morning, a teacher who I had hired a few days before, she was supposed to teach, and I got to the class and there were 12 students in the class. And I looked and I thought I saw the teacher. I guess I didn't recognize her as well. And everyone was lying in Shavasana. So I went into Shavasana as well. And about 20 minutes later, you know, everyone's looking around for the class to start. And I looked at it, and sure enough, it wasn't the teacher. The teacher had not shown. So I told the class that if it's okay, I'll lead the class. And that's exactly, I taught the class. That was my first class ever. And after class, the guests came over to me and asked if who's teaching tomorrow. They asked if I would be teaching tomorrow. And I go, why do you want to know? And they said, well, because your class is amazing and we want to come back. So I said, yeah, I'm teaching tomorrow.
I'll be here.
So I started giving classes, and people were coming. And one of the partners in the hotels happened to be also studied yoga and had gone to several schools studying. So she took my class and she said, you still have to go get your license. So I was going to originally get my license. There was a yoga school in Tulum, but the class was canceled because there weren't enough people signed up. So she sent me to India.
Wow.
Yeah. And while I was in India, I stayed longer, and then I studied. So first I went to the Vidya Gurukul ashram, and then I stayed and went to the Tushita Meditation Institute up north near the Dalai Lama. And then I went to Rishikesh and studied in the Anand Prakash Ashram. Yeah.
Goodness me.
Yeah. It was a great experience. So here I am in India, and amazing. And I was totally immersed, and it was the best thing that ever happened because I lived the ashram was in a small town. In fact, it was away from the town in its own area, and it was 4 hours north of Mumbai, and it was in, I guess, farm country. So this is the country, and you're cut off, but everyone in that area practiced and lived this yogic life, you know. So I was completely immersed in the yoga lifestyle. So you actually live it. It wasn't a question of just, oh, we're going to class. No, every moment of the day, waking and sleeping was living and understanding what yoga means as a life, and to lead this kind of life, you know, down a spiritual path. So that was it was a beautiful learning experience for me to be able to do that. So here I am in Rishikesh. This is a great story. And a couple of us had met on the bus going up from Dhamka down to Rishikesh. It's a long 9-10 hour bus ride.
Oh, wow.
And we got to speaking, and because I had no clue where I would stay, and one of the girls said, "Oh yeah, we're going to stay in this ashram." And I said, "Oh," they said, "Why don't you go there as well?" I said, "Sure." So we get in a little taxi at the bus station, and we make our way there, and they find a room for me, and we have our first yoga class and yoga practice, and then breakfast, and then we decide we're going to go to town because I've never been to Rishikesh. So it was the three of us walking in town, and all of a sudden this woman comes running over to us and starts speaking to us. And after a few minutes, she goes, "You know, you guys seem really cool and really down to earth. And I have to ask you a question." He goes, "Sure." And he goes, "You know, the ashram I'm at, the head of the ashram, it's very awkward for me because he's got a girlfriend, but I feel like he's hitting on me, and it's very awkward." He says, "Is there room in your ashram?" And we said, "Sure." And we went and we got all our belongings and brought her back. And we formed a little clique, the four of us, for a few weeks. And it was great because every day, every afternoon after yoga and lunch and breakfast, we'd take a walk up the Ganges River, and we'd have these amazing discussions. And then she turns to me one day and she said, "You should go study spirituality at Columbia University." And I go, "What? I'm here in India. This is why I'm here. You know, to me, this was the source of what I'm looking to do." She goes, No, look into it. Look into it. You'll see what I mean." And sure enough, after I left India, I looked into it. In Columbia University, they have an amazing clinical psychology, spiritual mind-body institute. And it's a great merger of psychology and a spiritual path, and using spirituality in helping people.
Wow.
So that was just amazing that I went all the way to India to and to be convinced
end up
to
back
go
in the US.
Yeah.
a big 360.
Yeah.
Tell me, I noticed when you were speaking earlier, you mentioned that you had been practicing yoga and meditation for 25 years. Was this something, just going back to Wall Street for a brief moment, were you practicing yoga and meditation when you were still on Wall Street?
So I was practicing yoga. I started off in the health club, in the gym. And what drew me initially is obviously seeing the movements, but I got hooked. Really very quickly, and I have to thank. And then I joined Jivamukti Yoga Center, and then I found an amazing teacher, Lady Ruth, and then and it was amazing. And then I started looking at other yoga schools and just finding teachers that resonate and learning from them. And that's when everything changed, because you started living and realizing that, whoa, this is different. Yeah. And to me, and initially I had a tough time. I had ADD. So I had a tough time just sitting quietly and meditating. And yoga was the first practice that was a meditation, because the whole movement, the asana practice, is a beautiful moving meditation. And that was that really helped me to relax, because of, working on Wall Street was very stressed and very challenging. So that allowed me to give me a little bit of stability. Yeah.
Let's move forward into your work now. There's no doubt we live in a society that is, I can't recall a time where we've ever been more stressed, more living in fear, whether it's COVID, inflation, goodness knows whatever else is going on in the world. Who are your clients? Who is coming to see you?
That's a really good question. So there's people who are coming like for counseling or guidance people who are having relationship issues, having problems, or feel that they're just stuck, and having trouble breaking through, taking them to the next level of whatever it is they're doing. But more importantly is this is creating depression within themselves, and a sense of no self-worth. And so yeah, and what people, and then there are a lot of people who come to Tulum and then they just take my workshop out of the blue, and then all of a sudden they open up and it's like, wow. They go on vacation thinking that, the vacation will help them forget about all the troubles they have wherever country they're coming from. And then they'll be called to take my workshop. And then all of a sudden, it opens up a can of worms, so to speak.
Yeah. I can imagine the can of worms.
Yeah.
There's a lot of misconceptions around meditation, and there's various forms of them. I believe, being how would I describe myself, as a periodic meditator, and probably not doing it properly and or seriously. There's these images that we hold of meditation that we need to have complete stillness, complete silence, no thoughts. I find that so difficult and so hard to believe. Is that really what it's about?
No.
Okay. In
Not
a word.
really.
In a word.
Yeah. Yeah. So your mind is going to constantly be thinking. It's not, we're not here to stop our mind from thinking. I think the main purpose of meditation is, how do we disconnect from all those thoughts going on in your mind, so you do not allow those thoughts to control your life, right? Because most of the thoughts that happen, and if you look, especially the fears coming from fear, never even come to fruition. All right. We think about so many things, the what ifs. We think about the past, or we think about the future, and we're making things up that never even happened and never happens. And can you imagine, we spend so much time worrying about it that we're not enjoying living in the present moment. And it's funny, because I was listening to Ram Dass the other day, and he talks about, and just so think how powerful the human mind is. It's probably the most powerful underutilized supercomputer in the world, right? The human brain, right? Our mind. But the mind is a beautiful slave, but a lousy master.
I like that.
Yeah. So it's how do we not allow all those thoughts control our lives? Let's use our mind for what we want to, and not the other way around. That little voice inside our head. It's always, and remember, we live in one or two emotions. We either live in the track of love, or we live in the track of fear. And when we live in fear, anger, frustration, tension, stress, disease, disorder, disability, judgment, ego. So when you're living in fear, okay, that's when that voice inside your head is also telling you, oh, what are you doing? You can't do it. You're not worthy. You're not good enough. Don't even waste your time. I mean, that's what goes through most people's heads one time or another. So it's about, how do we get back to this track of love, which is living in joy and gratitude and contentment and kindness and good health and no judgment.
So again, I mentioned earlier, we live in a time that in my memory has never been more stressful, more fear driven, whether that be by the media, irrespective of what the sources are. we need to start somewhere. There needs to be a beginning. But I don't, and this is the uneducated in this field, it can't be a session. It needs to be a lifestyle. Is that, am I reading that right in terms of meditation?
So let me say this, and maybe this will help. Okay, the purpose of meditation is not to become a good meditator who can sit for hours and in stillness. The purpose of meditation is to allow yourself the rest of the day to lead a happier and more joyful life by living in the present moment without being distracted by all those thoughts of the past or the future. And you mentioned earlier, a lot of my clients, that's what's happening, is they're living in the past. You know, it could be things that they weren't able to let go of that happened to them, the trauma that happened to them in early childhood, or even in early adult life, or even 2 years ago. And it's still stuck in their head and it keeps coming back, and that's what's controlling their life. And as long as you are not able to let go, or at least come to terms with it and be okay with it, then you'll never be able to lead a happy life in the present moment. You'll never be able to go to fully in love, being in this state of love. All right. And all this comes to self-love and self-healing. And that's one of the main things I teach. And that's what I'm trying to get across to people, is that the greatest teacher that exists has just been yourself. And by tapping into that and tapping into nature, you have the amazing ability to heal yourself. So the only thing a true, if you want to call somebody a healer, you want to call somebody a therapist, you want to call somebody, whatever you want to call them, they are a channel to give people the tools to heal themselves. At least that's what I believe. That's what we should be focused on, so that you have now the ability. And it all starts with what you're believing in your own head and mind. You know, what is your own belief system? Do you love yourself? Because if you don't love yourself, then how do you expect others to love you? How do you expect to really show true love to other people? Right? First, start with loving yourself.
What do you say to people that may come to your retreats and go, Ellie, you don't understand. You know, my circumstances are different. What I'm dealing with is just different. You don't understand.
So I'm not here to replace, what the therapist or their, whatever it is. What I'm trying to do is change them from the cellular level. What I mean is with our thoughts, we create our world. Everything begins with our thoughts. And that's why, I've always speak about 4 things: intention, certainty, self-love, and inner superpower. These are the things that I like to focus on during the retreats. Intention, the first thing in the morning when you wake up is you should set your intention for the entire day. What is it you would like to accomplish today? What is it you would like to see or do? And then picture it in your mind. See your day unfold exactly how you would like it to be. With our thoughts, we create our world. And if sometimes you don't have a clear intention, then make it an emotional intention. My intention is to be happy and feel amazing all day. And then picture yourself being happy. But whatever it is take that time, because with our thoughts, we create our world. Number 2, certainty. Everything you do with 100% certainty, 100% certainty, because even if you have a 1% doubt, that opens the door for failure. There's a great study that was done by CEOs of startup companies, the ones that were most successful in the same industry, same businesses. And it turns out, I'm cutting it just very short, is the ones that had the 100% belief and certainty that they would succeed. The reason why they succeeded more than the rest is because when the company hit an obstacle, which of course always does, instead of pivoting or throwing in the towel or they were able to face that challenge and work through it because they truly believed that they had the greatest thing and they were going to succeed. And that was the difference between those that, that the companies that fail or barely make it by, is because, they hit an obstacle and it's like, okay, let's try something else.
Yeah.
Next, self-love. Okay. Again, you need to love yourself. Go to the mirror, look in the mirror, look in, everyone speaks about eye gazing. We do these eye gazing exercises. But go to the mirror, look yourself in the mirror into your eyes and say the affirmations. You can say it. You are beautiful. You are healthy. You are amazing. You are love. I like to say it. I am beautiful. I am healthy. I am amazing. I am love. And again, I am love, because love is not something you do. Love is something you become. Okay. So every cell in your body is vibrating to this beautiful frequency of love. And when every cell in your body is vibrating at this frequency of love, every atom in your quantum field is now vibrating to this frequency of love. So anyone who comes into your field is feeling this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful love coming from you. And that's when now you will attract someone that is vibrating at this frequency. So people who come to me with relationship issues or they can't find the true love, they can't, and they're not happy, that's because they don't love themselves. So start by learning to love yourself. And the final thing we do as well is, everybody has an amazing superpower, but most people don't know it. And what I do is show people how to find this superpower. And I put them on the spot, give them time to think about it, come up with what you think your superpower is. And then sure enough, everybody comes out. And over the course of the week, they realize that every single person at the retreat has these amazing gifts to share with others, so that everybody is a teacher as well as a student in the retreat. So you're learning from other people. And that's what I love is because I want to show everybody that, that you have the ability to inspire others. So it's not just about being inspired. It's about how you have so much gifts within yourself. You have this beautiful superpower, you have this magic, and you need to share it with the world.
For those of us that can't get to Tulum, Mexico, what are help me with some tips for our listeners. Where does one start? It's, I guess it's a bit like if you've never been to the gym before, you can't go and spend 4 hours a day pumping iron. So if you've never been a meditator or you're so disconnected from yourself in this fear-driven world that we live in, where does one start? What's a good place to start?
That's a really good question. Wow. I feel that don't shoot for 20 minutes or 10. Just start with just a few minutes, and start maybe just with some simple exercises like moving your head around and moving your shoulders and your hips, just to make some movement with yourself every morning. All right, just to let your body to start to connect to your body. And that's what my yoga practice is about when I teach, is about connecting, deepening the conscious connection between your mind and body, to learn your body, to understand your body and discover, because the more you know about your own body, the better you could heal yourself. So just start that with a few minutes of that, and just no phones, nothing else, just for a few minutes. And then just sit in stillness, even if it's just for a minute. And if you get distracted and your mind starts to wander, then pick a mantra, pick a word that resonates with you that you can say over again within yourself. Transcendental meditation has this word special for each person they give. I like to share that I am love. All you have to do is say, I am love, because what you're doing is reminding every cell in your body that they are love. And this is something Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Joe Dispenza, they all speak about the same thing as well, is let your body know that they are healthy. So they use a meditation, I am healthy. So I am love, because love is not something you do, love is something you become. And if you're in nature, then take in stillness, listen to nature, listen to the birds, listen to the ocean, listen to the wind rustling the leaves and trees, whatever it is. And you want to know something, if you're in a city and there's trains and cars and buses and ambulances, just maybe listen to the music of all the sounds going on around you in the present moment. That brings you to presence. So it extracts you from all the thoughts going on in your head. Did I lock the door in my house before I left home? Did I turn off the fire under my hot water after I made my cup of coffee? I mean, these are the thoughts that everybody has, because the mind is trying to distract you. And that little voice inside your head, is doing the same thing. So it's a lot. Okay, that happens, or so many times it happens to me. I'll tell a friend, I'll call you back, and then I get busy, and of course it's a day later or 2 days later, and then I'm in the middle of meditation. I remind myself, oh my God, I forgot to call Mariella. Right. So the first thing you want to do is stop the meditation to call her. Right. And that's when I have to go back. I am love. I am love. I am love. Right. And then what happens, of course, at the end of the meditation, I'm completely forgotten about calling Mariella.
Does she eventually get a call back?
Yeah, of course. I'm very good that way. Do unto others as you want done unto yourself. Okay. One of the most important, pretty much in every religion, every culture, the number one law is love thy neighbor as thyself, right? But again, if you don't love yourself, then you're not going to love your neighbor.
No.
So some people turn it around. They say, don't do unto others as you want done unto yourself. So I personally don't like it when people don't get back if they tell me they're going to get back to me and then go back to me for days. Of course, I don't appreciate it. So I make the effort to make sure I always get back to people as soon as possible. Lead by example. Yeah. So and that's another. I'm sorry.
No.
So that's another good point. Is that I think what I do is everything I speak about are things that I need to hear myself, that I want to hear myself. So I figured, let me say it out loud. Maybe there's someone else who needs to hear these messages as well and can benefit from it. So that's what I teach, and that's, I think, what's made it special. And it's always the best. The best teacher is at the same time the best student. And I'm so happy to learn from everyone and anyone. The Celestine prophecy, it says everybody you meet for a reason. But what happens is that we live in a fast-paced world that we're always thinking about the future or thinking about the past, worrying about the future, that we're not living in the present moment. So we meet somebody who has a message for us. We're not in the present time to take the time to understand what it is that message is and how they can be here of assistance to us. And that's one thing I learned living in Tulum and slowing down, and also living in the desert and tending the sheep, and is how to live more fully in the present moment and get to all of a sudden know people and see why it is we have met. Because you ever go to a party or you're out in a restaurant and you see the same person over and over again for months and months and months, or maybe you go to a party and you see a person and there's something about them, and then 4 months later you're at a different party and you see them again, and then a third time you're walking on the street and you see them, this is the universe giving you messages saying, hey, you two need to get together because somebody here is here to assist the other person. But again, we're always busy thinking about something else or rush, that we don't take the time to say, hey, my name is Ellie. What's your name? I've seen you around. And next thing you know, you start a conversation and it's like, whoa, so.
And all of a sudden the dots start to get joined up.
Yeah. And it's funny because people, when I tell people, everything that happens for a reason. And, it's about how you look at negative things that happen to you. So, but why is this happening to me? And a lot of times, the answer is not clear until many years later. And I am living proof, 13 years ago, if I was not arrested, and that changed the path of my life, I wouldn't be where I am today, sharing what I have with the rest of the world. Because true. At the time it was like, I can't believe it, my life is ruined.
Yeah. Ellie, this device is whether we like to acknowledge it or not, it's almost become a necessity of life in terms of communication and so on and so forth. But it's also one of the most destructive things when we have no control in terms of how much time we spend on it. What advice would you give from in terms of not negotiables with a phone? Like, what would Ellie's laws be and around phone use, let's say?
So what I do is an hour before I go to bed, I put my phone on airplane mode. I turn it off. Aside from the fact that you don't want those waves in your room, you have to learn. And during the day also, you need to take phone breaks, which is very difficult. It's become a point where you're right, it is tough. But I think that's a good start. And like I said, the first thing in the morning, instead of checking your phone, unless of course it's an emergency or you're dealing with something, is take a few minutes and take time for yourself, with a few exercises, a few minutes meditation, and do that. To go back also, because you asked me a very important question, what are some tools people can use to start on their own if they can't make it to Tulum? Well, obviously we can also meet online, but I think affirmations are very important because a lot of the things that happen is we're programmed at an early age, and it's the bad programming, so to speak, and those become our habits, and the idea is how to reprogram. And that's why we have to start using affirmations over and over again, repetition. So it's always nice to go to the mirror in the morning and just eye gaze and give these affirmations. I am healthy. I am beautiful. I am amazing. I am love. And then the
kids are looking at you and going, okay, Dad, Mum's gone off the rails. Call the ambulance.
Well, I've seen cases where I've seen them happen where the kids are doing it also, and it's amazing. It's just a beautiful thing to see when the children do it as well. But yeah, it's okay. When people start vibrating at a higher frequency, the people who are still vibrating at a lower frequency, they look at you like you're crazy. Right. So either one or two things happen. Either you start to elevate the others as, wow, they're so happy. They're living in joy and they're living in such a beautiful place. I want to be there. And you start lifting them up as well. But the ones who want to stay in a negative place, they alienate themselves and distance themselves from you. And that's fine. Because people tell me, I'm doing these practices and my friends now don't want to hang out with me because they all want to go party and do drugs and drink. And I don't want to do that. And And I feel, and I really want to do it because I don't want to lose my friends. And I said, listen, your real friends, you're not going to lose. Okay. The ones who weren't your friends, who are just interested in you because you're another person to party with, you should be thankful that they're alienating themselves from you. They're doing you a favor.
Mm-hmm.
And this takes a little bit of time, but of course, eventually they wake up to the fact, like I said, everything happens for a reason. And it's like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. Because when they say when one door closes, another one opens. When you get rid of all the baggage that you've been carrying with all your life, now you have room to bring in much newer and better baggage. I wouldn't call it baggage, but
yeah,
I think
luggage.
Yeah,
luggage is a better word.
Luggage is a better word.
Luggage is a better word. Ellie, I must admit, your the brochure that you sent, the captivating photo for me is the meditation on the beach with the sunset. That is just
sunrise.
Sunrise. Was it sunrise? Was it?
Yeah.
That is just. I looked at that and go, wow.
Yes. So it's interesting because the Tulum is facing east. Okay. And so we're lucky to get to see the most beautiful sunrises every single morning. When I moved 8 years ago, I lived on the beach, and almost every morning I would wake up really early to meditate on the beach at sunrise. And it was just beautiful, beautiful thing. And what I learned also is that, every day you wake up, and we speak about this in many spiritual practices, in the study of Kabbalah, every day you wake up is a brand new day, and you don't have to bring anything else with you for this new day. And the sun rising is a great example, is because every day the sun rises, and sunrise is different than the day before. Every single morning it's different. And that's just it. You do not need to be the same person you were yesterday. You don't need to take all those preconceived notions and all those programs that you had the day before with you the next day. You can change. It takes time. It takes the will, and it takes the repetition to change, but everyone can change. So having those beautiful sunrises, and we do that at the retreat, of course. We do sunrise meditations, and it goes deeper than that, because we usually speak. We talk for a while, and then we go into meditation. Each morning we change up the meditation a little bit as well. Yeah, I mean, it's all part of the retreat. It's amazing. And that's why, like, the workshops I do run from anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to give people a taste. But when you're immersed for 5 to 7 days, giving you these tools and using them, it's so much better than when you go back to your regular life, to be able to take these and make the commitment. Because once we get home from vacation, it's right away we're back in the turmoil with our kids and with work and with all the problems that in our daily lives. And then very, very slowly we forget about the meditations and the practices and the affirmations.
Yep. So
it's about how the longer you're doing it, and making it a routine, the better chance you have. But everyone, it's not like one has a better chance than the other. Everyone is different. Yeah.
Ellie, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you this morning where I am, but afternoon where you are in Tulum, Mexico. I thank you so much for your time, the value that you've brought to not only our audience, but to myself as well. It's a bit like asking for a friend, free consult.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Con. Thank you. And I thank the listeners. And yeah, I mean, remember, the greatest teacher that exists is within yourself. Tap into that. Tap into who you really are, and use nature, and use your guides and your therapists and teachers and doctors to get into yourself, to find.
Thank you very much. Wonderful words as we close. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Con. I am the Conversationalist, and until next time, bye for now.